Welcome to Shine.fm's A Closer Look podcast, going a little deeper into the hearts and lives of the artists you hear on Shine.fm. How are you doing today? Are you in Nashville or are you on tour?
I am in Nashville today. It is a beautiful day, and I'm home.
It's exciting that Cain is a sibling group, so your two sisters are with you. Now, have you guys always been close? Have you always gotten along? Do you have any sibling rivalries?
Yeah, I know it's kind of a boring answer, but we really always have been close, like kind of abnormally close. I remember this was before I was not yet married, but I was talking to my now wife, and she had asked me about specific plans. I don't remember exactly. Hey, I want to do this. I want to go here. And I said, okay, cool. Let me check with the girls. And she said, why? And I said, I don't know. I just always have. And I think that we just have always been, it's just the three of us. We're 3 and 3 years. Taylor's the oldest, Matt's in the middle. I'm the youngest. And we lived together all the way through high school, but we lived together in college. And then when we moved to Nashville, we lived together here until we each got married and moved our separate ways. And so being on tour actually feels so much more like home. It feels a lot like how we grew up, where we're in close quarters, and we just work better like that. We each are 1/3 of an artist. I think if Cain, the band, would not exist if any of us tried to do it on our own. I think we desperately need each other, and we know that. So it's fun. I know that's, we bicker, we fight, and just like you do in any sort of business. And I think the turnaround is ultimately nobody gets to go anywhere. So our fights don't last very long, because it's not like we're going to go down in a blaze of glory. It's like we get in a big fight, and it's like, oh, well, great. Well, we're still family, so we have to work together.
Right.
so the fights really have nowhere to go but reconciliation. So we try not to fight too long, because it's kind of a waste of time. But
that's awesome. So for anyone who sees you on tour, on social media, it's like you always have matching clothes. Has that always been kind of a thing for you guys? Or maybe your parents kind of dressed you similarly when you were younger, and then later on you're like, hey, we could make this kind of a pinnacle of our group.
Yeah, right. Like you think your mind immediately goes to pictures of kids in matching sailor outfits. But we didn't always match, and then when we started to pursue music, our clothing styles are so inherently different just on a daily basis if you were to see us in the studio or something. And so we struggled to match, because when we first started doing music, it was like, well, I want to wear this boho dress, and I want to wear this big, thing. And then I'm left in the middle, sort of like, well, I'm going to end up wearing, a bow tie and parachute pants, and it's just like, what are we doing? So what we found, we grew up watching a movie called That Thing You Do, which is, unassailable, one of the great movies musically for me of all time. And the Wonders, the main characters of That Thing You Do, they always wore matching suits. And so we just got this idea, like, well, if we're all wearing matching colors, it'll look like we're matching, even if our style's a little different. And so that seems to work, and I like being known for it now. I think it's fun, because we'll post what color we're going to wear, or people will say, hey, what color are we wearing in Austin? And it's just fun. It's a little kind of nugget. You look out in the crowd and see people wearing an orange T-shirt, and they're pointing at it, and it's like, yeah, love it, because that's probably the most fun part of any of the social media or any of the stuff, is that we have a great team and they work really hard for us, but we run our social media. So any message or comment that we get comes directly to us, and that's just like such a fulfilling thing to feel like I'm actually getting to have a back and forth with people on a daily basis. And
yeah,
cool.
It's awesome. All right, so you guys started performing in church when you were little. Later you did some country music, and then you got into Christian music. Kind of tell me a little bit about the wild ride that journey has been.
Oh man, wild ride is exactly the description. I'll give you the short version. The longer version is on our website, which is cool. We had a lady dictate and write that for us. It's really cool. But basically, when we decided to, being an artist, a music artist, was somewhere on par with being like a professional athlete for me or something. It was just like something somebody else did, but it wasn't something that I could do. And our grandfather worked in the songwriting industry here in Nashville, and he saw us in college perform, and he said, hey, I think you guys could do it, but if I were to help you, it would have to be in country music, right? That's the only connections that he had. We didn't grow up listening to that. We were raised exclusively on Christian radio. Like, I knew nothing about country music. I didn't really love it, but I just thought, okay, Lord, like, if this is a door you're opening, I don't want to be stubborn, right? So we start to walk into it, and 6 years down the road, we realized in an effort to do what we thought God had ordained for us, now I'm traveling every weekend instead of being in church. I have drifted so far from where I even thought my life would go in pursuit of something that I didn't really think I wanted, right? No slight to it, but it's like I never dreamed about playing CMA Fest or anything, really. It was like all I ever knew was music as worship in church. And so when we get to the end of that 6-year run, and it was just like, man, can we just go find like a local church and just get plugged back into that? And the girls were both married. I wasn't married yet. But we were still just like, I think maybe music's over. Like, that's sad because it's the thing that's kept us together all this time. But maybe music was only ever going to be something in church. And we were getting ready to kind of call it quits. And we just committed it back to God and said, like, okay, I'm going to go back to church. My first Sunday back at this, well, I guess it was my second Sunday. My first Sunday serving, I was on the coffee team. I didn't even want to tell them that I sang. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to walk in and say, okay, I'm back from my worship job. And so I was on the coffee team, and then they needed a fill-in guitarist. So I played guitar, and then they said, well, do you sing? And, oh, yeah. And so over time, we started to be a part of the worship team. And that was giving me so much joy, and my country music career was leaving me so unfulfilled that I just thought, well, maybe that's what this is. Maybe music will only ever just be in church, and I'm okay with that. And when I was able to let go of what I thought was God's plan for me, I was able to find what it really was. And so our now manager goes to our church, and he said, I can't reconcile why you guys have so much joy leading worship, but you seem so displeased and so discontented with your music career. And so we just said, you know what? If we do Christian music, this isn't an attempt to cross over. This isn't a career move. If we're going to pursue Christian music, we're going to go all in on this. And then if that's not it, we'll be done.
Yeah.
And so that was in December of 2018. And then in January of 2019, we had our first meeting. And they offered us a contract in March, and off we go. So what feels like an overnight success or whatever was preceded by 6 long years of wandering, and a wild ride is a great way to put it. But I'm just so thankful, as I say, as I wrap up what I said would be a short story. I'm just so thankful that there were people, God just placed people all along the way that said, like, I see you. My hand is still on you. I have not forgotten where you're headed. And people just encouraged us at just the right moments and really kept us alive in this thing until we could ultimately find our way back to what God had for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So is that kind of what Yes He Can is about, or is there more to the story behind the song for Yes He Can?
Well, I think absolutely yes. My hope is that people can sort of plug and play their own story into it, but I think that Mom and Dad pastored the church we grew up in. I'd still say they're my pastors. That's what I call them. And Dad always raised us on this kind of phrase. He would say, if he's done it before, he'll do it again. And I just love the idea. I love getting a chance to say to people, God is not keeping a tally on you and saying, okay, I've given you your one answered prayer. I've given you your one miracle. Now you're done. No, I think God is saying, look back at times that I've been faithful. Look back at times when you thought there would be no way and I made a way, and use that to believe for something in the future that looks like there won't be a way again. So when we sing, the song says, did he move every mountain? Did he part every sea? Yes, he did. So yes, he can. And then it says, did he defeat the darkness and did he deliver me? And I'm so thankful that it's not necessarily, we don't always need a mountain moved or a sea parted. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to know that he's there. You just need to remember that he brought you out of that place where you were and set you in a new place. And so for people listening, and I mean, shoot, for myself, for you, Megan, it's like, I just want to always give God the benefit of the doubt, right? I just want to always believe that he's going to come through because he has before. And so that's kind of my hope, is when people hear, yes, he can, it just reminds them afresh or sows a new seed in their heart to say, like, okay, God, I can believe that you'll come through.
Yeah, that's awesome. It was so good to talk to you today, and I hope that the rest of your tour and your summer and all the busyness, it is so fulfilling for you guys.
Thanks, girl.
Thanks for listening to A Closer Look. For more content like this, subscribe to the Shine.fm podcast channel from Olivet Nazarene University.